What if your husband comes back while we are having an affair here? What then? Ethan heard Chad's voice as he returned from the company, opened the door, and entered the living room. That loser of his. So what if he comes back? He probably knows about us already, but he's always begging me to stay with him. He's such a loser. I cheated on him, and he doesn't even dare to say a word. It was Scarlett's voice. What if he gets angry and beats us up? I think your husband looks pretty strong, Chad said. What good is strong? I slap him, and he's too cowardly to react. He's useless, a total loser, Scarlett said. You are right. No matter how arrogant he is, he's just a live-in son-in-law. Your family has such a big business, how would he dare provoke you? He just swallows his anger. What's the point of a loser like that living in this world? If it were me, I'd have killed myself long ago. You are too good for him. Marrying him, Chad said. Chad suddenly grinned mischievously and said, I actually have an idea now. Scarlett asked, what idea? Chad said, I really hope your husband shows up here, so he can watch me cheat on him. Watching someone else sleep with his wife, that expression must be priceless, that scene must be unforgettable. Scarlett feigned annoyance. You're annoying. Let's get to business. With a bang, Ethan suddenly kicked open the bedroom door. The two were startled, but seeing it was Ethan, they laughed and hugged each other again. Ethan, have you lost your mind? How dare you kick the door? Scarlett demanded. Ethan was so angry he couldn't speak. After a long moment, he managed to curse out 2 words. Cheaters. Scarlett said, yes, we are cheaters. What can you do to me? Are you rebelling? Chad said, you are a loser. I'm going to sleep with your wife right in front of you. Ethan clenched his fists, his knuckles cracking, and said, this is beyond endurance. Chad said smugly, so what? Come on, hit me. Come on. Come on. Hit me. Can't do it, can you? I knew you didn't have the guts. Your wife sleeps with other people, and you are too cowardly to react. You are just a pie. He couldn't finish the word before Ethan grabbed him by the chest and punched him in the face. Chad roared, bastard, try hitting me again if you've got the guts. Not just 1 punch. If you want them, you can have 10. Ethan roared back. With that, Ethan landed a dozen punches, leaving Chad with a bruised and swollen face. Ethan, have you lost your mind? How dare you hit my Chad? Scarlett yelled, is he your Chad? How shameless. If you keep talking, I'll hit you too. Ethan roared again, hit me if you dare. You are just a loser, Scarlett shouted. Ethan backhanded her, immediately swelling her face. You dare hit me? I'll tell my father to cripple you. Scarlett said, I was just about to ask your father how he raised such a cheating daughter. I'll let the whole world know about your shameful acts, and see where your father puts his face. Ethan yelled, you dare hit me? Divorce. Scarlett probably worried about the scandal being exposed, so she shouted this, of course, we are getting a divorce, you shameless, unfaithful woman. I've wanted nothing to do with you for a long time. Ethan shouted loudly, if we divorce, you'll have to leave with nothing. You won't get a single share of the company's stock, Scarlett added. As she spoke, Ethan punched Chad a few more times. He finally couldn't take it anymore, and started to plead, brother, please stop hitting me. I'll never associate with this adulteress again. Ethan shoved him to the ground and walked towards Scarlett. Scarlett suddenly started breathing rapidly and said, what do you want to do? Ethan said, 80% of the company's shares go to me, and the remaining 20% is for you to make a living. Scarlett's arrogant demeanor finally subsided, and she said, okay. I only want 10% of the company's shares, just enough to get by. The other 90% belongs to you. Once everything is settled with the company in a couple of days, we'll get a divorce. Ethan was tired of looking at the cheaters and walked out. Ethan's family had been very poor since he was a child, and as the eldest, he had to do a lot of heavy farm work from a young age, which built his strong physique. After school, he got into a key sports academy. After graduating, he taught at a high school. His income was low, not even as good as migrant workers hauling bricks at construction sites. Later, Ethan's younger brother was diagnosed with leukemia and needed $500,000 or $600,000 for surgery. So, Ethan quit his teaching job and went to work at construction sites, but gathering $600,000 was not easy. His father borrowed from every relative and friend and took out loans, but it was still a drop in the bucket compared to the $600,000 needed. In desperation, his mother knelt on a street corner with a sign around her neck, begging passers-by for help. Although many people did give money, it was usually only a few dollars. $10 was considered very generous, and it was still far from the surgery fee. One day, a matchmaker pulled his mother up and said, "There's a family who can help you." His mother excitedly asked, "Who?" The matchmaker said, "William, the richest man in the local town." His mother naturally knew he wouldn't help for free, so she asked, "Does he have any conditions?" The matchmaker said, "As long as you let your eldest son, Ethan, be there live in son-in-law in the Churn family, then you'll be in-laws, and wouldn't it be natural for him to help?" Although the Churn family was the richest in the local town, they didn't have a good reputation, so his mother still hesitated, and said, "But I'm worried my eldest son won't agree." The matchmaker said, "Why wouldn't he agree? The girl is pretty and vivacious, and her family is wealthy. Where else would you find such good conditions? Besides, Ethan is a filial child, and he and his brothers get along well. How could he stand by and do nothing?" His mother said, "But their family's conditions are so good, how could they fancy my Ethan?" The matchmaker said, "You wouldn't know this. But first, your Ethan is handsome, and second, other families with good sons generally wouldn't want them to be live-in sons-in-law. Actually, being a live-in son-in-law isn't a bad thing, it just sounds a bit unpleasant. Their family is rich, and they only have one daughter, so won't their vast fortune eventually belong to your son?" His mother said, "Okay. I'll go back and discuss it with my son." The matchmaker happily said, "That's right, once you've discussed it, come find me, and I'll arrange it for you." His mother told Ethan what the matchmaker had said. "The family is willing to make this marriage happen. I imagine their daughter isn't very attractive and might be hard to marry off. It would indeed be a compromise for you to be a live-in son-in-law, but is also my child, and I really can't bear to see him leave this world so young. He still has so much wonderful life yet to experience. Ethan, what do you think we should do?" Ethan said without hesitation, "It's just being a live-in son-in-law, isn't it? I'm willing." Ethan had imagined the Churn family's eldest daughter countless times in his mind. Perhaps she was pockmarked, or hunched, or unrecognizably fat, in short, as ugly as could be. Under the matchmaker's arrangement, Ethan met Scarlett. Although couldn't be considered exceptionally beautiful, she wasn't bad looking either, and from her profile, she was even somewhat pretty. At least she was much better than Ethan had imagined. Scarlett had already seen Ethan's picture, and was very satisfied with him. Seeing him in person, she was overjoyed, since she wasn't particularly ugly. Ethan was naturally very pleased with the marriage. Ethan told Scarlett, "Since you are satisfied with me, let's quickly finalize the marriage. My brother is waiting for the money for his surgery." Scarlett said, "We don't know each other yet. What if we don't get along? How about this? Our family will lend you $600,000 first. If the marriage goes through, you won't have to repay it. How does that sound?" When heard her say that, he only thought she was understanding. She feared they wouldn't get along, and this way, the marriage would still have room for maneuver. But in reality, her family was worried that Ethan's family would take the money, then divorce her, and then they would lose everything, both the person and the money. What didn't know at the time was that her father had ties to many figures in the underworld, and was the leader of a group of gangsters. They were worried that Ethan would look down on them. Of course, some might say, if he's involved in organized crime, why would he worry about Ethan taking the money, abandoning his daughter, and running off alone? If did that, he could simply cripple him. There were two reasons. First, although he was involved in organized crime, he publicly pretended to be a legitimate businessman. Second, at this time, anti-gang crackdowns were in full swing nationwide, and they didn't dare to assault people illegally without restraint. Although didn't register their marriage or hold a wedding with Scarlett, he still moved into her house and lived with her. While living at her house, Ethan was very cautious. After all, Scarlett wasn't bad looking, and her family was so wealthy, not to mention her family fortune. Just the $600,000 for his brother's surgery was enough for Ethan to earn for many years. He naturally didn't want this marriage to fall through. Their family had a nanny named Olivia, Hired shortly before Ethan moved into the Churn family home, her daily tasks included cleaning and cooking. Scarlett seemed to have OCD. She would call Olivia to clean even if the house was slightly untidy, and Olivia was often drenched in sweat from exhaustion, but never complained. She was uncomplaining, hard-working, diligent, and conscientious. Ethan couldn't stand by and often helped her. Because of this, they had a good relationship, thanks to Ethan's caution. Scarlett couldn't find fault, and they got along reasonably well. A few months later, Scarlett became pregnant, so they married because of pregnancy. Although and Scarlett were in their honeymoon phase back then, and she treated him reasonably well, she still looked down on his family quite a bit. When they got married, Ethan's parents, younger brother, and sister came to the wedding. They came into the house to find Ethan, and encountered Scarlett. They greeted her, but she ignored them completely, didn't ask them to sit, and just walked away, making the situation very awkward. Later, when Ethan's parents met William and Margaret, they only said, "Oh, in-laws," and then left them aside. In the end, it was Ethan who invited them to sit in the living room. His mother said worriedly, "My son, are you really doing well? If not, we'll gather $600,000 and return the money to them, and then you two can divorce. We can't let you suffer a lifetime of being wronged." Ethan said, "Mom, you don't have to worry. Look, Scarlett is pretty, and she treats me well, and her family is rich. What could I be doing badly? Don't worry needlessly." A few months after they got married, Scarlett gave birth to a daughter, who was sweet and clever, named Lily. After more than a year of living together, Scarlett seemed to have gotten used to Ethan's caution. She often summoned him and dismissed him at will, and when she was in a bad mood, she often gave him dirty looks and lost her temper. To maintain the marriage, Ethan gradually lost his dignity and his sense of self, constantly compromising his dignity. He was even treated worse than the nanny. Employers wouldn't dare be overly presumptuous with a nanny, as they'd worry she might quit. But with Ethan, she didn't have to worry about him leaving at all. He was like a dog she owned. A dog without its owner has nowhere to go. She often told her best friends that one at home just eats. He's useless. One day at dinner, William said he was going to sell Apex, the shaver company he founded, claiming it was constantly losing money. Ethan wanted to prove that he wasn't useless, not just a freeloader living off the Churn family. So he said, "Dad, don't rush to sell it. Let me manage it for a while, and see if I can make a profit." William looked at Ethan with disbelief. "You?" Scarlett sneered. "Ethan, you? What kind of joke is that? You should just stay home and run errands for me. You'll never amount to much in this life. You are just a gopher." Ethan said, "Dad, just give me one chance. Let me try. What if I succeed?" Margaret, rarely speaking up, said, "Since he wants to try his hand at it, let him try. Anyway, I can't bear to see a great business be ruined like this. If he fails, at worst, we'll lose a few more million. We've already lost so much, a little more won't matter." So took over the company, which was on the verge of bankruptcy, and became its new CEO. Through his visits, Ethan discovered that the company was still selling old-fashioned razors, although these razors were relatively cheap. As people's incomes increased, they couldn't compete with modern razors. A major reason why Apex hadn't developed modern razors was William's concern about high research and development costs. However, a secret to his profitability despite not developing new products was that he used organized crime tactics to suppress competitors, preventing their products from appearing in this city, thereby maintaining his monopoly. Of course, Ethan only learned about this later, but recently, anti-gang crackdowns were in full swing, and some modern razors from other regions flooded the local market. Apex market share plummeted, leading to a large backlog of Apex products, and pushing the company to the verge of bankruptcy. Although razors from other regions had entered the local market, their market share was still small, and Apex still had significant influence. If they developed modern razors now, they could quickly capture the market. So went to his father-in-law William, hoping he would provide $5 million for Road. He said, "Most of the companies under my name have lost money. Where would I have extra money for you? Are you not satisfied with losing enough money, and now you want to take out cash to lose more? I thought you actually had some ability. Turns out you are more trouble than you's worth." Ethan knew he wouldn't provide the money, but he didn't want to give up. He was determined to achieve results for them to see. Since wouldn't provide funds, Ethan had to find a way himself. Ethan discovered that Apex still had a large inventory, all unsold stock. He had wanted to sell them cheaply to competitors, but they weren't interested. So, Ethan used the inventory razors as collateral and took out a bank loan, getting $4 million. With this $4 million, Ethan immediately organized technical experts to develop a new generation of razors to deal with the existing stock. Ethan stipulated that the newly developed razors had to be an improved version of the old-fashioned razors, and that old-fashioned razors could be used as raw materials during production. After more than a month of intense work, the modern razors were successfully developed and entered mass production. Another month passed, and the modern razors were launched into the market. After 1 quarter, revenue surpassed $10 million, and net profit reached over $3 million. Ethan used a portion of the profits to pay off the loan in installments, and the main portion for new product development. He deeply understood that continuous innovation was the foundation for remaining invincible. Scarlett worked at another of the Churn family's companies. Ethan didn't even know which one, as he had never been there. He heard that although she held the title of general manager, she essentially collected a salary without doing any work. Her assistant and the deputy general manager handled all the tasks. She treated going to the company like a casual visit, strolling around the office for an hour each day, then driving her car around the city. She hadn't gone to college, and her high school grades were very poor, so she didn't understand much about the company's business, only how to spend money. Although had turned the company around from loss to profit and earned a lot of money, he remained cautious in his marriage. Firstly, they had a lovely daughter, and he didn't want to lose this marriage. Secondly, Apex gave him a place to use his skills. They could let him manage the company, and they could just as easily dismiss him. He didn't want his efforts to go to waste, so he had to save this marriage. However, Ethan's caution and subservience made Scarlett believe he was weak and lacking dignity. Since was born, Olivia had to take care of the child in addition to cleaning and cooking. Sometimes she was too busy, so when Ethan was home, Scarlett would do nothing but constantly order him around, treating him like a free nanny. Sometimes, Ethan felt extremely unhappy with her arrogant demands, but he still endured them. She often made him perform all kinds of degrading chores, like washing her feet, washing her dirty socks, and pouring out her foot bath water. Although didn't want to do many of these things, he swallowed his pride and reluctantly did it, because he didn't want to lose this warm home that gave him all his hope. The most hateful thing was that Scarlett kept making sarcastic remarks even after Ethan did these degrading chores. For example, she often told her best friends, "Look at that Ethan, he does whatever I tell him. He's truly a loser. How did I marry such a useless man, with no dignity at all? That's all he's capable of, just pouring out foot bath water." Sometimes couldn't take it anymore, and ignored her orders, and she would say, "Why are you so petty? I was just joking, you are a grown man, why are you so petty?" Sometimes thought she was right, why should a grown man bother with her? But then she would sometimes demean him, calling him worthless, saying things like, "A loser is a loser." If genuinely didn't listen to her, she would pull out her trump card. "Ethan, are you defying me? If you don't do it, we are getting a divorce." If it were now, Ethan would have divorced her long ago when she mentioned it. But back then, he couldn't bear to leave his daughter, and didn't want her to grow up in a single-parent home. Plus, he didn't want his career to end, so whenever she mentioned divorce, he got scared. So, he humbly apologized to her. One day, Scarlett told Ethan to go out, and buy takeout for her. People in their area generally didn't eat spicy food, so when ordering takeout, it was assumed by default that it wouldn't be spicy. Perhaps the person cooking the takeout was new, and didn't know the rules, so they put chili peppers in the order. Scarlett took 2 bites, then dumped the takeout on Ethan's head, yelling, "Are you trying to kill me with spice? You can't even handle such a small task. What good are you?" Ethan was covered all over his head with takeout and was furious. So he retorted, "The takeout place put the chili peppers in, I didn't taste it. How was I supposed to know if there were chili peppers?" She suddenly slapped Ethan twice, yelling, "You made a mistake and you are still trying to argue. Are you defying me? How dare you talk back to me?" Ethan, a grown man, was slapped so hard that tears streamed down his face. She sneered, still crying, "If it were me, I'd have killed myself long ago." Before, she had mostly just used sarcasm and mockery towards him, only verbally abusive, not physical. But ever since that first time she got physical, it spiraled out of control. and she constantly slapped him in front of other people. Ethan wanted to just leave, or divorce her, but thinking of his adorable Lily, he couldn't bring himself to do it. As a man, being hit by a woman was indeed pathetic beyond belief. Just as she said, "I slap him twice, and he's too cowardly to react. He's truly a total loser." Even more pathetic was that, when she made sarcastic remarks, Ethan not only didn't retort but had to swallow his anger. She would order him around while simultaneously looking down on him, showering him with sarcasm and mockery, sometimes even physically abusing him. Once, when Ethan couldn't take it anymore, he raised his fist at her. She didn't dodge. Instead, she moved towards his fist and yelled, "Hit me! Hit me! Go on! Try to touch me if you dare. I'll immediately tell my father to cripple you." At the time, her father was involved in organized crime, and Ethan knew some of the signs. Ethan's fist didn't fall, not because he was afraid of her father. If her father truly intended to harm him, as long as Ethan could gain some time, he could call the police. No matter how rampant organized crime was, they didn't dare to act recklessly and confront the government. Of course, Ethan didn't anticipate then that they were actually colluding with many police officers, so even if he did call the police, the effect might not have been significant. However, due to his ignorance, he wasn't afraid. The reason Ethan didn't dare to hit her was that he knew once his fist landed, their marriage would be over. He couldn't let Lily grow up without a complete family. At the time, Ethan only thought about how to save the marriage, but he hadn't considered that his marriage with Scarlett might be dragged down by her gangster father. Ethan was swamped at the company during the day, and when he returned home, he still had to wait on Scarlett. She often woke up in the middle of the night wanting to eat and would tell him to go out and buy it for her. Ethan had to go to work at the company very early every day, often suffering from sleep deprivation and feeling drowsy. He didn't know if she was deliberately tormenting him, but she wouldn't let Lily sleep in the same room as Olivia, saying she didn't trust outsiders with the child, and wanted the child to sleep in their room. Whenever the child cried in the middle of the night, she would tell Ethan to get up and soothe her. It was better when Lily was older, and not so easily awakened, but for the first year or two, she would wake up crying once or twice almost every night. Ethan often dozed off while riding his electric scooter. They didn't provide him with a car, and nearly caused an accident several times. There were also a few times when he was caught by the traffic police and lectured harshly. Aside from Apex, the churn had several other companies, which were reportedly forcibly acquired by William. Only Blades was legitimately built step by step through hard work. Ethan feared getting into trouble, so he never inquired about her family's other businesses, and never requested to work at them, although looked down on him. Her parents, seeing that Ethan had revived Apex and earned substantial profits, didn't give him too much hardship. Of course, they also wouldn't give him any praise or favor. Of course, this was also his own fault. If hadn't demeaned himself and acted like he couldn't survive without the Churn family, they wouldn't have naturally looked down on him from the bottom of their hearts. If they were born to look down on people from poor families like us, then they wouldn't have deliberately tried to get him to be their live-in son-in-law. So, people, if you want others to respect you, first, you must respect yourself. If had spoken up then, threatening to divorce and run away, they might have treated him much better. There's nothing you can't live without in this world. No matter how important other things are, nothing is as important as dignity. Without dignity, living might often be worse than being dead. Self-respect isn't about saving face. Dignity is the fundamental baseline of being human. It's how you see yourself, while face is how others see you. We can abandon saving face for the sake of living, but we cannot abandon dignity. If others look down on you, that's their business. If you look down on yourself, that's your own business. Saving face is knowing what to do, and dignity is knowing what not to do. For example, Scarlett might not save face for Ethan in front of others, but for his self-respect, he could choose to divorce her. However, at that time, Ethan didn't even have the courage to divorce. He didn't know what would happen after divorcing. They continued their squabbling for 3 or 4 years like this. Lily was also sent to preschool, since had to work and Scarlett was busy shopping. Olivia was always the one who picked up and dropped off Lily. During these 3 or 4 years, Scarlett constantly trampled Ethan's dignity and constantly pushed his boundaries. However, she was unwilling to let him go, and insisted on divorcing him. She would only use divorce to threaten him, and as soon as he apologized to her slightly, she would drop the topic. Sometimes, Ethan truly wished she would decisively divorce him, as that would be a release. It felt like expecting release from a painful situation, only to have the opportunity snatched away, prolonging the agony. For example, when Lily was about 6 months old, she hadn't been weaned off milk yet. Scarlett went to the game parlor to play cards. Lily was probably hungry and wouldn't stop crying, but wouldn't leave the card table. It was late autumn then, and the weather was cold, so it wasn't good to bring the child to the game parlor. In his anger, Ethan went to the game parlor and disrupted the card game. Scarlett yelled furiously, "Ethan, are you defying me? Divorce." As soon as she mentioned divorce, Ethan cowered and said softly, "You can't just play cards all the time, the child is crying." At this moment, Ethan secretly hoped she would insist on divorcing him because he had disrupted her card game. However, she didn't. She said, "Just 2 more hands, and then I'll go back." Seeing that she showed signs of compromise, as if giving him an out, Ethan didn't make a fuss anymore. After 2 hands, Ethan saw she still intended to play more, and was about to get angry, but she said, "No more playing. Otherwise, that loser will start nagging again." Her sharp words left Ethan speechless. Another example, in the past 2 years. Once, Ethan spoke a few words to a female colleague from the company. Scarlett saw it and flew into a jealous rage. She immediately slapped the female colleague. Ethan yelled, "What are you doing?" She then slapped Ethan twice and yelled, "I'm going to divorce you." As soon as Ethan heard her threaten divorce, he panicked again and pleaded, "Please don't be angry. I'll never talk to her again." But secretly, Ethan hoped she would decisively divorce him, because he talked to a female colleague, so he wouldn't have to put up with her anymore. But she said, "If you dare associate with those inappropriate women again, I'll beat you to death." Since she didn't decisively divorce him, Ethan couldn't say much more. The female colleague left with tears in her eyes and a resentful look. Ethan blamed himself greatly. Due to his weakness, she had suffered too much hardship. Scarlett constantly used sarcasm and mockery on Ethan, calling him a loser. Seeing his lack of reaction, she finally began to challenge his final boundaries. Truth be told, Ethan's body, tempered through countless trials, exuded masculinity and had a certain charisma for many women, although kept claiming she looked down on him and called him a loser. She didn't want Ethan, this loser, to belong to another woman, so, every time they had conflicts, she only threatened divorce, but she never truly divorced him. However, exclusively possessing Ethan wasn't enough for her. She also tried having an affair. Of course, her having an affair also had a lot to do with Ethan's indulgence. A new employee named Derek joined the company she worked for. Although didn't exude masculinity like Ethan, he was good-looking and the type of person who was very attractive to the opposite sex. Perhaps initially worried that if Ethan found out about her relationship with Derek, he would divorce her, so she didn't dare to be too reckless at first. She gradually became less harsh with Ethan than before, no longer verbally and physically abusing him. Ethan thought she had truly changed and become gentle, so Ethan became even more attentive to her, hoping she would treat him better, so their family could be preserved, which would be best for Lily's growth. However, this backfired, making her even more convinced that Ethan couldn't survive without her, and even if he knew about her affair, he wouldn't leave her. As the saying goes, secrets always get out. Ethan gradually heard rumors about Scarlett and Derek. Plus, many nights she no longer had such strong desires as before, so Ethan became even more certain. However, she treated him better than before, which made Ethan feel like it was a good thing. Since she didn't make things difficult for him, Ethan couldn't turn hostile towards her. He only earnestly pleaded, "Scarlett, we have a lovely daughter now, and the company is constantly making a profit. We have success in both career and family. We must cherish this good life. Don't you agree?" Scarlett said, "What exactly do you want to say?" Ethan said, "Let's live our lives well together, okay?" Scarlett said unhappily, "Aren't we living perfectly fine? What's gotten into you?" Although wasn't entirely satisfied with her answer, she didn't immediately admit her relationship with Derek, indicating there was still some leeway. If she had said she was in love with Derek, then their marriage would have been doomed. The fact that she still had a guilty conscience about her affair with Derek showed that she wasn't planning to give up on this marriage yet. However, Ethan didn't know that her plan was to have her cake and eating it too. She wanted both. After she realized that Ethan wouldn't divorce her even if he knew about her affair, her true colors were revealed again, perhaps in her eyes. For a wealthy young lady like her, having a few men was no big deal. She initially cheated with Derek secretly, rarely getting caught, at least not by anyone Ethan knew. Later, she grew bolder, and started appearing publicly as a couple with him. Ethan had lived in the Churn family home for several years, and knew a few neighbors. Some of them warned Ethan to watch out for Scarlett and Derek. They initially just appeared publicly as a couple, but later, some people discovered they were openly booking hotel rooms. Ethan was very anxious. If he exposed them, their marriage would have no room for maneuver at all. He just earnestly pleaded with her every night before going to bed, but instead of making her settle down, it worsened her behavior. She even brought her Chad home that day. Company affairs were light, so Ethan returned home early. Olivia had gone to pick up Lily. Ethan unlocked the door with his key and heard them cursing him in the bedroom, so kicked open the door and gave the other man, Derek, a good beating. Scarlett also took a slap from him. Although it was just one slap, Ethan was a graduate of a sports academy, and lashing out in anger, he didn't hold back. It immediately swelled her face. With this outburst, all the anger accumulated over the years finally burst out, and it felt incredibly satisfying. After hitting them, Ethan was about to leave. As he walked down the stairs, he ran into Olivia returning with Lily. "Dad." Lily ran over and jumped into his arms. Ethan couldn't help but be moved to tears. "If and Mom separate, who would you want to live with?" Ethan asked. "Why would Dad and Mom separate?" Lily asked. "Because and Mom don't want to be together anymore. Who would you want to live with?" Ethan said, "With." Lily said in a sweet, childish voice, "Why? Don't you mind that Dad is poor?" Ethan asked. "Dad is good to Lily. Mom has a bad temper and often yells at Lily." Lily said. Olivia smiled and said, "You've finally realized it." Ethan said, "I gave the cheaters a good beating. This divorce is definitely happening." He then told Lily, "Lily, you go back with Aunt for now. When and Mom officially separate, I'll come pick you up." Although called Ethan a loser every day, Olivia and Lily didn't see him that way. Ethan rented an apartment near the company. Although he managed the company, and the Churn family kept a close eye on him, Ethan still managed to save tens of thousands of dollars in personal savings. Although had said he would only give 20% of the company's shares to the Churn family, and Scarlett said she only wanted 10%, Ethan was just trying to scare her. His plan was still to only ask for 50% of the shares, although had revived the company. It was ultimately the Churn family's. He would feel uneasy about it if he took too much. Nothing happened the next day, and Ethan went to work as usual. Early on the third day, Ethan was still in bed when he suddenly heard a commotion outside. "Ethan, get out here." It was father-in-law William's voice. Ethan got dressed and walked out of the room. "Ethan, did you bully Scarlett?" William said, accompanied by a few henchmen and Scarlett, demanding loudly as soon as he saw Ethan, "I did teach her a lesson, but you should ask her what she did." Ethan said, "Our family fed you and clothed you, and you dare to bully my daughter. You are truly an ungrateful wretch." William said, "If we're involved with another man, would you still be so self-righteous and speak with high moral authority?" Ethan said loudly. William suddenly pulled out a pistol, pointed it at Ethan's forehead, and said, "If you keep talking nonsense, I'll shoot you dead. Killing someone is like squashing an ant to me." Scarlett said smugly, "Ethan, weren't you arrogant? Go on, be arrogant again. Put the gun down." Suddenly, a gun was pressed against William's temple. Ethan turned his head and saw it was Olivia, the nanny. Quick as a flash, she snatched the gun from William's hand. "Who are you?" William exclaimed, shocked. "Guess." Olivia said with a half smile, "Are you an undercover police officer?" William asked, "At least you are not completely stupid." Olivia replied, "Impossible." William shouted, "I'm a police officer from Maplewood City. The city police must have been bought off by you. I've already installed hidden cameras at all the locations you frequent. Your crimes are undeniable. Come with me to the police station." Olivia said, pulling out handcuffs, and immediately cuffing William. Olivia handed the gun to Ethan and said, "Mr. Ethan, please keep an eye on the suspect for me. I still have others to arrest." Just as William's subordinates were about to flee, a police car pulled up. Two police officers jumped out of the car, blocking the subordinates' escape route. However, one subordinate still managed to get away. the two police officers cuffed the subordinates who hadn't escaped, and took them into the car. There were 2 police cars. Ethan and Olivia rode in the front one, with William sitting in the middle, between them. As the police car drove on, vehicles suddenly appeared in front of them, and people began shooting at the police car with firearms. Ethan and Olivia opened their car doors and returned fire. Ethan had learned shooting at the sports academy. Soon, several of the gang members were shot down, but more and more gang members appeared, along with more vehicles. Their guns quickly ran out of bullets. Just then, Olivia threw Ethan 2 more guns, and several magazines. Ethan asked, "Where did you get so many guns?" Olivia replied, "Found them at William's house." With enough firearms and ammunition, Ethan no longer felt so panicked. More and more gang vehicles surrounded the police car. The police car attempted to break through, but then a gang member shot out its tire. The police car was forced to stop. Ethan and Olivia jumped out and engaged in a gunfight with the enemies. Ethan said to Olivia, somewhat annoyed, "You've been undercover for so long, didn't you know he had so many accomplices?" Olivia comforted him, saying, "Of course I did. Don't worry, we'll be fine, watch out." A slippery gang member managed to sneak up behind them, and was aiming a gun at Olivia's head. Ethan immediately lunged at Olivia, knocking her to the ground, but he took a bullet in his back, quick as a flash. Olivia immediately shot the gang member several times, killing him on the spot. As more and more gang members appeared, they were outnumbered and on the verge of being killed, when suddenly sirens blared all around them. The doctor removed the bullet from Ethan's back, but he still had to lie in bed for 4 or 5 days. After this life-or-death situation, Ethan and Olivia's relationship deepened significantly. "You deliberately lured William's men here to catch them all, didn't you?" Ethan asked. "Are you just realizing that now? Did you think his subordinate would escape so easily?" Olivia said, tossing a bouquet of flowers onto Ethan's hospital bed. "That was a brilliant move. If you had tried to catch them one by one, who knows how long it would have taken." Ethan gave a thumbs up. "Of course, some slipped away, but I have a list. I can arrest those who slipped away one by one later. I just feel really bad that you got injured because of it." Olivia said, "Then how will you repay me?" Ethan grinned mischievously. "How do you want me to repay you?" she asked. Ethan gestured for her to lean closer, and whispered in her ear, "What about giving yourself to me in return?" She patted his shoulder and feigned annoyance. Flatterer. Because had been involved in organized crime for many years, and had even committed murder, he was sentenced to death. While and Margaret were William's relatives, they had not participated in the organized crime activities. They were detained for a few days, given a warning, and fined a few $1,000s before being released. All the businesses under William's name, that had been acquired through coercion and unfair dealings, were confiscated and seized by the state. Only Blades was handed over to the mother and daughter to manage. Ethan filed for divorce. Since Blades had been revived after he took over, it was considered marital property. Therefore, they divided it equally, and Lily's custody went to Ethan. Scarlett and her mother no longer enjoyed their former glory. They were not skilled at running a business, and sold their shares in Apex. However, Scarlett continued to spend money lavishly, and quickly used up most of it. Later, when Ethan saw them, they were handing out flyers for people. It was sad to see the former wealthiest mother and daughter reduced to handing out flyers. After the divorce, Ethan also sold his shares in Apex and became a police officer. After dating Olivia for a year, they felt they were compatible and got married. Although divorced Scarlett, the lessons she taught him were still deeply ingrained. If someone cannot give you self-respect, compromising your dignity only makes others look down on you more. Olivia sometimes joked, mimicking Scarlett's tone, calling Ethan a loser, but he wasn't angry, because he knew that in her heart, he was not a loser. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comment section. Feel free to share your views, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.